For this video, I'm going to be in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. After dumpster diving for some cheap Meijer flannels, I start the video at the Sault Ste. Marie Meijer. Hey, come on now, don't judge. It was a cold and windy day in Sault Ste. Marie, and just like all of you Mountain Dew drinking, flannel shirt wearing hilljacks, I like to save a few bucks when I can. Anyway, it was so windy that my drone couldn't handle the strong winds, and that's unfortunate because I could have captured some nice aerial shots of the Soo Locks. At least the fall colors were at their peak stage. In the Upper Peninsula, fall colors hit their peak in late October, which is a lot sooner than the rest of the country. The sun was out too, which made for one last nice-ish day for the Upper Peninsula that season. Well, in this video, I drive around Michigan's oldest city, Sault Ste. Marie, and I'll tell you more about the place along the way. Sault Ste. Marie is about a 45-minute drive north of the Mackinac Bridge. It's also directly south of the larger city in Canada that is also called Sault Ste. Marie. It's one of the few sizable cities in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, a region that is known for its remoteness and scenery. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, as doing all of those things helps these videos destroy the evil monster that is the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy checking out some of the featured playlists on this channel. Videos on other places like what you'll see here can be found in my Michigan playlist, my Upper Peninsula playlist, or in my USA Small Towns playlist. Last but not least, if you can't get enough of me on here, you can always go follow me on my other social media accounts, and those links are below. So yes, Sault Ste. Marie was the first ever city in what is now the state of Michigan, as it was founded back in the 1600s by the French missionaries Claude Dablin and Jacques Marquette. It's apparently the fourth oldest European city in the US west of the Appalachian Mountains. Before that, though, Native Americans owned this land dating all the way back to 2,000 years ago. The St. Mary's River, which connects Lake Superior and Lake Huron, was a rich fishing area, and the settlements of Sault Ste. Marie's location along the river made it a great spot for fur trading. The natives actually called this place Bawating, which in their language meant the gathering place. The great fishing along the St. Mary's River attracted full-time residents who set up a community that was full of homes that were built on wooden poles and roofed with animal hides. When the French missionaries arrived in the 1600s, they called this area Sault du Gaston, but in 1668, Marquette gave the settlement the name of Sault Ste. Marie in honor of the Virgin Mary. So that leaves us to wondering where the name Soo comes from, spelled like a fancy way of saying salt, but pronounced as Soo. It's believed that the word Soo is a French word that means to jump, which leads historians to believe that this was the place to jump into what is now the St. Mary's River. And no, we're not currently crossing the St. Mary's River into Canada. This is the Edison-Sioux Power Canal, which powers the hydropower plant on the east end of downtown, which I'll talk more about later. But yes, I guess that this was the location along the St. Mary's River to quote-unquote jump into the river. Before the Soo Locks were here, the St. Mary's River was a string of rapids, and the river dropped a total of 21 feet in elevation on its journey from Lake Superior to Lake Huron. But supposedly, the spot that Sault Ste. Marie is today was a nice spot along the river that you could jump into the river, I guess. Really quick, as we enter downtown Sault Ste. Marie, to the left is the Soo Theater, which was opened in March of 1930. In 1998, the theater closed, but it was bought by a non-profit in 2003 called the Soo Theater Project, and it's been in use ever since, and today, it looks like it's in pretty nice shape. More interesting things on the very early history of Sault Ste. Marie includes that in the 1700s, this area was thought to have been a strategic location along what is now called the St. Mary's River. Add that in with the natural resources provided nearby, and it became a battleground between the French and the British as they fought over the area for the rights to trade with the Native Americans. In 1820, the Treaty of the Sioux was signed, which gave this area to the United States in 1823. Forts were built here as the United States was cautious of British invasions from Canada early on. Lastly, you can't talk about the history of this area without mentioning the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of the Chippewa Indians. This tribe has lived here for what is believed to be 2,000 years. In fact, a generation of Native Americans that belong to the Sioux tribe still live here today. This tribe has members that are spread throughout the Upper Peninsula, but Sault Ste. Marie is the center point of their culture. Today, the Sioux tribe is the largest recognized tribe in the state of Michigan. We can talk more about the history later when I talk about the Soo Locks, as most of Sault Ste. Marie's history is centered around the Soo Locks. For now, I'm going to fast forward to today. In the 21st century, the economy has hit some rough times. The top 5 employers in Chippewa County include the War Memorial Hospital, which employs around 900, the Bay Mills Resort and Casino, which employs around 600, Lake Superior State University, which employs 500, the Sault Ste. Marie Public Schools, which employ 290, and the U.S. Coast Guard, which employs 250. Granted, those numbers are from 2015, but sometimes for these smaller places, data doesn't always get updated on a regular basis. The declining population and struggling economy that Sault Ste. Marie faces today is magnified when you look at the entire UP and the northern half of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. Not only does this region have what most people consider to be awful winters, but it's also an isolated region as it's far away from many other major metropolitan areas. The closest metro area to Sault Ste. Marie with over 1 million people is Grand Rapids, and that's a 300-mile drive south. When employers look to set up new offices, they often will look at data that will help them decide if there's enough young talent to help their business be more successful. That data will include the percentage of adults that have a bachelor's degree or higher, crime rates, and of course, tax rates, as all corporations are looking for tax breaks. There's many other things, though, that these companies will look at when they're looking to expand, including location, and places like Sault Ste. Marie just can't compete with the other larger metro areas of the country that are more conveniently located to other populated areas. On the flip side, the residents that have stayed here will tell you that that is what they love about the place. Some people love the isolation factor and being buried in feet of snow every winter so they can head out and play on their snowmobiles. Sault Ste. Marie started to decline in population around 1960, while Chippewa County didn't start to see population loss until more recently. Sometimes looking at the stats for a single city can be misleading as to how the area is doing economically, and this could be one of those times. You can see that the stats for Chippewa County fare slightly better than the stats do for Sault Ste. Marie, but it's not necessarily all that great still. The population of the city today is about 13,000 residents, and the median household income is $38,000 per year. 26% of adults 25 and older hold a bachelor's degree or higher, and the median value of owner-occupied housing units is a low $92,000. The poverty rate is double the national average rate, as it's at 22%. Niche.com ranks the public schools as a B, and the crime rates are well below the national average rates. So yes, the experience of living here is a lot different than the experience of visiting here. Visiting here for the purposes of seeing the Soo Locks might be fun and all, but you don't want this place to be the reason that you visit here, people. Yeah, Chippewa County is no joke, trust me, I know from experience. Yeah, alright, no I don't. Well, a town of 13,000 would be considered as a small town in many regions throughout the United States, but Yoopers would consider Sault Ste. Marie to be a good-sized city. It's actually the second largest city in the UP after Marquette. If you were to combine the population of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan with the neighboring city of Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, that would make a population of 90,000, as the Canadian city is much larger than the United States city. That almost makes this area the largest population center within a 200-mile radius, which is pretty fascinating as it speaks to how isolated the surrounding region is. To the east, Sudbury, Ontario would be the only larger population center, which is where the legendary Jeopardy host Alex Trebek is from. If the UP were its own state, it would have the lowest population total out of all U.S. states, and it would be the fifth least densely populated state, as it has only 18 people per square mile. Make sure to drop a like for that amazing insight. Historic Water Street, the sign says, with a nice mini Washington Monument-like structure here. Along historic Water Street is the home of one of the first European settlers to the area, John Johnston, who moved to Sault Ste. Marie in 1793. Johnston married the daughter of the Chippewa Indian leader and was known for being successful in fur trading. Visitors can tour the home during non-pandemic years. Since the Soo Locks is federally owned property and since Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan is an international border, the feds have a large presence here. This is Portage Avenue, where you'll find a lot of the touristy shops and restaurants. It's only a block south of the Soo Locks, and further ahead to the right, you'll come across the Soo Locks Visitor Center, which takes you to the viewing area of the Soo Locks. And it is here to the right where you will find the Soo Locks Visitor Center, which is also the entrance to Soo Locks Park. Not sure why Soo Locks is always spelled as S-O-O instead of being spelled the same way as the city, but it's all pronounced the same. You also have the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society in the brick building past the Visitor Center. Well, straight ahead from here, you can see the Sault Ste. Marie International Bridge, which is at the end of the mighty Interstate 75 in the United States. Or the beginning, depending on how you look at it, as it stretches over 1,700 miles from here to Miami, Florida. The bridge, however, is operated by the International Bridge Administration under the direction of the Sault Ste. Marie Bridge Authority. The next land border crossing between Canada and the U.S. to the south is 300 miles away, as the crossing is the Blue Water Bridge between Port Huron, Michigan and Sarina, Ontario. To the west, it's about another 300 miles before you reach the west shore of Lake Superior, where there's a land crossing near Grand Portage, Minnesota. The bridge opened in 1962 and is about 2.8 miles in length. So, about those Soo Locks, and trust me, I know it's disappointing that I don't have any drone footage of the locks or of anywhere else in town. Nobody is more disappointed about that than I am. Anyway, the Soo Locks makes it possible for ships to sail on through from Lake Superior to the rest of the lower Great Lakes system. The completion of the locks was a big deal for places like Thunder Bay, Ontario and Duluth, Minnesota, along with several lumber and mining communities in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, as the completion of the Soo Locks helped all of these places boost their economy during the mid-19th century. I mentioned earlier how the St. Mary's River once was a string of rapids that fell a total of 21 feet in elevation, and back then the water was too rough for boats. In 1797, the Northwest Fur Company created a canal on the Canadian side of the river, and it's credited as the first attempt to help ships navigate the rapids. It was hardly any help though, and it wasn't until 1855 when the first official Soo Lock was completed on the US side. The first boat to come through the Soo Locks was a steamboat that was named the Illinois, as it came through on June 18, 1855. In 1881, a second lock was opened. This engineering project was held to the same praise as the Erie Canal was back in the 19th century. In 1966, the Soo Locks were designated as a National Historic Landmark, and today the Soo Locks continue to expand as a new $480 million project was included into the United States 2022 infrastructure budget to help build a new lock that will span 1,200 feet long, 110 feet wide, and 32 feet deep. The Soo Locks also serve as a tourist attraction, and if you missed it earlier, we passed by the Soo Locks Visitor Center a couple of minutes ago, along with the viewing deck for the public. It is believed that 500,000 people visit the Soo Locks on average per year. However, you can only visit the viewing deck as it is federal property. Soon you will see the Chippewa County Courthouse. We've passed by it already, but this time the view will be front and center. The courthouse was built in 1877 and was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1984. Today it's one of the oldest original courthouses that are still standing in the state of Michigan. The tower on the right that you see is called the Tower of History, and it was built in 1968. From the corner of Portage and Kimball, it rises to 210 feet. On top of the tower, visitors can see a 360-degree view of the surrounding landscape that includes the Soo Locks, the St. Mary's River, Lake Superior, and 2 different nations. The tower was built on the site of Jacques Marquette's first log cabin and chapel. If you recall, Marquette was one of the founders of Sault Ste. Marie. The tower was actually constructed to be a part of St. Mary's Catholic Church, but it instead turned out to be what it is today, which is an observation tower and is only open from May through October. And to the left here is the museum ship Valley Camp. The SS Valley Camp was a Great Lakes freighter that was in use for 50 years, but today it serves as a museum. Originally launched from Lorain, Ohio in 1917, the SS Valley Camp hauled iron ore that was mined in the UP to mills in Buffalo, Cleveland, and Gary, Indiana, back when those cities were in their industrial heyday. In 1968, the ship was parked here, and it's been a museum ever since. It's also a National Historic Site. Visitors during non-pandemic years are allowed inside to explore the ship and get a glimpse of what Great Lakes sailing was like back then. Oh, and we just passed the St. Mary's Falls Hydro Power Plant. The plant is powered by the canal that runs through downtown that I talked about earlier, and it's ran under the supervision of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's one of the oldest plants of its kind in the United States, as it's been in operation since 1902. In 1983, the power plant was named a Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. The plant is only capable of producing up to 30 megawatts, which is pretty weak. In comparison, some nuclear power plants can produce over 1 gigawatt of power. Hydropower just isn't that efficient, which is why you don't see them on a large scale that often, but it is a pretty neat sight when you are able to see them. Next, I make my way back west through town before reaching Lake Superior State University. Oh yes, pure Michigan roads, baby! And here is Lake Superior State University. It's Michigan's smallest publicly funded university, and the athletic teams go by the Lakers. Enrollment counts are dwindling here as they're now below 2,000 after being around 2,500 in the 2010 school year. The school was founded in 1948 on the site of where Fort Brady used to be, which was a military fort that was in use from 1894 to 1944. The school might not be known by many people, but hey, at least it's one of only 3 schools in the nation with a fire science program, so if you like playing with fire, maybe Lake Superior State University is the school for you. Among the most notable alumni include about a dozen former NHL players, including Jim Wiley, Derek Smith, Stephen Alexi, Brian Rolston, Jim Dowd, and Chris Dahlquist, among others. With all those hockey players, you might be able to start your own Olympic team. This school might as well belong to our friends up north. And the neighborhood that surrounds the campus is pretty nice. To the left is a water tower that was constructed back in 1894. And a newer water tower straight ahead, right above this pure Michigan road. And from here I skip the video ahead to a part of Sault Ste. Marie that we haven't yet been to, and soon you will have seen just about everywhere in Sault Ste. Marie if you've watched this video in its entirety. This is Soo Area High School, home of the Blue Devils. Not sure if that ski hill is owned by the high school or not, but if it is, that's definitely not something that you see very often. And here to the right, away from all of the other main touristy things in this town, is the Kewadin Casino, which is owned and operated by the Sioux tribe of the Chippewa. There are several tribal casinos in Michigan. Tribes are allowed to build and operate their own casinos as long as they are placed within the borders of the reservation. And what do you know, we ran full circle and we are back towards where we started the video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my Michigan playlist, my USA Small Towns playlist, or my Tourist Towns playlist. We'll see you next time. Peace!